I need to talk about someone briefly, and this is very touching and emotional for some of us here. But we had a gentleman that worked here in the Alumni Association. He was a patient here, a very, very dear friend of mine, and we lost him in the hurricane. It was very tragic. It was horribly tragic. As a matter of fact, the Wednesday night, he and I had dinner down in the Recovery Cafe, and Friday morning we lost him. And he was just irreplaceable to our place here. Just a great friend of mine. Through me, my wife got to meet him, and she fell in love with him. And we had many times together. And I know that he would be here. I know he'd be sitting right back there, smiling at me, staring at me. Charles Dean, I miss you, always will, and God bless you, and this is dedicated to you. But most importantly, the most important people here are you guys. And I want to thank each and every one of y'all for being here. This is an incredible weekend. They say success, that you never measure your success by what you've done. You measure your success by what you've overcome. I'm in a room full of incredibly successful people. Look at what you've overcome to get here. Look how many mountains you've climbed to get here. I've told you very often, some of you may remember back to those times when we spoke here in this room, that you'll never forget your time here at Pavillon. And this shows that you didn't. But I want you to think back on those first few days here, the first couple of weeks you were here. Do you remember how you felt? A lot of despair, a lot of confusion, a lot of sadness, grief. I know a great deal of anger. Look at you now. How do you feel now? Proof positive what you're doing is incredibly worthwhile, and you're doing such a great job. So you honor us by being here. We're very pleased, and thank you. We're pleased by your presence. We're humbled by your kind words and your gratitude and your thankfulness. But let me tell you something. You guys are the ones that did the work. You're the warriors. You're the battlefield. You're on the battle. You took the battlefield and you did it. You're the ones. You're the ones that all we did was offer you a place to grow and heal. So thank you. Thank you so much. We're very humbled by your presence, and I want to thank you for all being here. And having said all that, now let's go to work. Let's see what we got here. If you got any questions, please ask. We'll have some time at the end of this to ask some questions. I will ask you that if you ask questions, that you try to restrict them to the ones I know the answer to. I just don't like telling good people lies, so please ask me what good questions. All right. So to talk today is called a shield. You got to have a shield. Let's get this clear from the beginning so we can all be on the same page. There's often a grievous distortion of the terms recovery and sobriety and exactly where they put a person. To many, they are considered interchangeable and synonymous. Now, this is a gross misconception of the two models, and it can send people down the wrong path, giving you a false sense of accomplishment. Not knowing any better, they think they've done something, but in fact, you've come up far short of the goal. Recovery and sobriety are not the same thing. Sobriety is a medical condition. The term represents a physical and neurological state of being. It just means that I don't have toxic mood-altering chemicals in my brain, that I am not under the influence of a drug. It's where you are after being medically detoxed. This is, of course, where you must start, but it's not the end all. It's not even close. It's good, but it don't make you that big a deal. A donkey can get sober. We've all gotten sober. Some of us dozens of times. But to stay sober, you must move towards a recovery, and that's a damn big deal. Recovery means exactly what it says it is. If I lose something and get it back, I have recovered it. And for me, that's the purpose of the whole thing. Granted, there are many motives to seek this condition called recovery. You may have all kinds of reasons for treatment. You may want to regain health, keep your job, mend shattered relationships, resolve legal issues. But what I will say here today that is on a conscious or subconscious level, and that you may not be able to realize it and maybe even verbalize it, what drives most people into recovery is a startling sense of being lost, leading to a longing to find yourself again. I know that our traditions state that all is needed is a desire to stop drinking. But what comes after that? What's driving you now? I say that it's really a burning desire to retrieve that lost soul, to feel whole again. To reclaim, embrace, cherish, and protect everything that you hold dear, everything they believe in. To once again define themselves through the practice of spiritual principles and productive character attributes. To salvage from the wreckage of the past honor, pride, dignity, integrity, hope, and inner peace. To once again exhibit responsibility and accountability, putting them in a place through all your actions where they can be trusted and respected again, as well as respect and trust yourself. This is the essence of true recovery, to recover your true best self and therefore put yourself on the path to the realization of your personal destiny. And do not doubt me, everybody has one. And whether you know it or not, you're following the call for your destiny. I'll put it succinctly. Sobriety is where I am. Recovery is who I am. Now, what I'm about to say next reflects my personal beliefs. This may go against the thinking and philosophies of those far more learned than I am. I can't defend this with data, graphs, charts, or empirical evidence. But when you get to my age, you can say pretty much what you want. People think you're senile, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I believe that we were born enough. I believe that all the values, standards, and principles anyone would ever need to be an honorable, decent, caring, and spiritually fit human being, I believe we were born with. I think of this as our natural state. When we are there, this creates in us an emotional comfort zone, a sense of well-being. You might say, I feel good, I'm doing good, I'm okay. Some may refer to that time and place as being comfortable in my own skin or being in the zone. Subsequently, our actions and attitudes reflect an emotionally balanced soul. You feel good, so you do good. Alcoholism and addiction turns all of that on its head. Very honest men and women enter the world of alcoholism and addiction and become disturbingly deceitful and devious. Very compassionate men and women find that through their alcoholism and addiction, they have become cruel, cold, and callous. Very understanding and forgiving men and women stumble into the world of alcoholism and addiction, and that brings suffering to themselves and others through damning judgments and hateful resentments. The once thriving soul is now a cratered abyss, and where virtue once flowed like a refreshing river and fed the spirit, now corruption dries it up and lays it barren. This void or sense of insufficiency is intolerable to the human psyche. Mother Nature abhors a vacuum, and she is going to want this hole in our souls filled up. There will be a yearning to be emotionally intact. Now, this drive may be hidden way back into the unconscious, but it is very real and quite often unstoppable. With brilliant insight, Carl Jung says that alcoholism is the perfect metaphor for man's thirst for completeness. We try to drink and drug ourselves into wholeness. Now, I can't speak for you, but as for me, I didn't drink all they could make, but I did have them working 3 shifts. And I never once found what I was looking for. Now, it may have worked initially, a short-term fix, but in the long run, what at first offered me a cosmetic and very deceiving sense of peace soon turned on me, and it opened the gates of hell. I have said many times that among the many cruel tricks that alcohol and drugs play on a person is that at first, at the beginning, they work. And there's when the trap is set. So after some time in treatment, some therapy, and many meetings, the once suffering alcoholic and addict finds themselves on the road to happy destiny, quality recovery, and recovery is beginning to be a way of life. That sense of completeness starts to materialize. Joy and serenity have now replaced helplessness and despair. You start to smile, hell, even laugh again. You're eating better, putting on a few pounds. You got a few chips under your belts, some another color than those 5 or 6 white ones you got in your sock drawer. And everybody's happy again, except for one guy, and that's your disease. And boy, is he pissed. You have completely derailed all of his plans for your emotional, spiritual, and physical demise, and he don't like that one bit. He ain't happy, and he's coming back, and he will have an attitude. He knows every trick in the book. He's been using them for hundreds of years on millions of struggling alcoholics and addicts, and you ain't going to be any different. Here in the South, or where I come from, when that happens, we call that opening up a can of whoop ass. And he's getting ready to open a whole case on you. Know this, prepare for it and dig in. The war for your soul is now about to begin. Now, I could talk for an hour on how that will happen, on how evil, insidious, and cruel this guy will be, but that's a whole nother lecture, and I don't have time for it today. Our literature doesn't say that our disease is cunning, baffling, powerful because it sounds good. They say it because it's true. And it's also patient. He's got all the time in the world because it doesn't have a soul of its own. It'll try to take yours. So know this and know it well. You better have a defense for your recovery or you're going to lose it. Now today what I'm going to talk about is what I think is one of the most powerful and effective safeguards you can employ and what I think is vital to long-term recovery. In other words, I feel that if you don't have it, I would question I fear your corrupt. I just think it's inevitable that the attacks are going to crumble you. I just don't think you can stand up. Everything you hold dear you might lose. Now I'll use a movie to illustrate. One night I found this neat movie on HBO called The 300. It's about these 300 warriors that take on literally thousands of enemy soldiers on a small strip of land. Now this huge invading army is trying to conquer the homeland of the 300 soldiers, and they must go through this small mountain pass to get there. These 300 soldiers encamp themselves at the base of that mountain passway, and they have to hold fast and defeat the invaders in order to defend their families and save their land. Now this movie is actually based on a true story, but to make it exciting and attractive to the audience, it's kind of computerized and Hollywooded up. In the, let's say, somewhat altered version of his history, these 300 brave men not only have to face thousands and thousands of enemy soldiers, but all kinds of weird war machines, great big man-eating animals, monsters, freaks, giants. It's a fun movie to watch and very inspiring because of the bravery and loyalty of the 300 defenders. Not to mention all those crazy, odd-looking beasts, but in a powerful and a very inspirational way, it offers us all some messages for recovery, how to protect it, and I'd like to share that with you. Then I'll relate their battle to ours. You see, the defending army has to have an unshakable courage to take on this massive force. The enemy in numbers, machinery, and weapons is vastly more powerful than the defenders. I mean, it ain't even close. These guys are way outmatched. So right there is the first message. It takes courage to take on a disease or an invading army that by definition is more powerful than you are. It takes the kind of courage that says that you will not be moved from your mission of recovery no matter what the enemy brings you. Courage that says that despite all odds stacked against you, you will not be defeated, that you will remain true to your mission. Now let's talk about that word courage for a minute. Let's break it down, define it, qualify it, and apply it to recovery. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's pushing through the fear. The young boy asked his father, how can you have courage and be scared too? The father said, how can you have courage if you're not scared? Being scared, frightened, maybe even terrified is actually a prerequisite for courage. But that fear should also be a dynamic. It can't be a paralyzing anxiety, but one that should push you into action. It can shout, it can roar, or it can also be that quiet voice that late at night whispers, I'm going to try again tomorrow. No matter how courage may manifest itself, in our case, that action be in defense of something of virtue, something good, and that's important. Defense of virtue, defense of good. If someone were to ask me to condense all the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of works of literature, commentary, research, documentation on AA, and the 12-step philosophy, I could break it down into two words: moral courage. We are tasked over and over again, do the next right thing. And sometimes that next right thing ain't easy. It might take a whole boatload of courage. And we summon that force and we put it into action because something or something we believe in, hold dear, and is precious to us is being threatened. In the case of the Spartan army of 300, it was not just their native land, but the cherished loved ones that lived in that land. It was to protect and maintain their culture, their way of life, the social order that represented truth and honor. It was truly a virtuous act. And it wasn't just courage, but moral courage. And listen to this, the sentence, because this is important. Only when courage is used in the preservation of virtue and honor can it now be called moral courage. It's different from physical courage in that physical courage is in defense of your life. Moral courage is in the defense of your soul. If morality represents what is right in a person, then moral courage represents a level of courage that shelters and guards your rightness, your honor, what defines you as a decent human being. That's the call that the Spartans rose to, and that's also the cry any one of us who have ever dared the journey of recovery must also rise to, the level of moral courage. We should also call attention to why the word courage and not bravery is used. That word is printed indelibly and with purpose throughout our literature. Courage is the principle of the fourth step. The serenity prayer calls for the courage to change the things that I can. The word courage is used 18 times in the big book in the 12 and 12. There's a reason that courage is used and not the term bravery. Think about it this way. The brave take on the dragon when the dragon shows up. The courageous go find their dragons and slay them so they don't come back. In our movie, the courageous Spartans didn't wait until that marauding horde of evil attacked them at their homes, but instead they went out to that mountain pass and they met them there. They took the fight to them. Do you have the courage to look deep within yourselves and go find your dragons? Do you have it in you to take the fight to them once you find them? In our serenity prayer, we ask for the courage to make those changes. In every one of our 12 steps, we are asked to do that by fearless introspection. And don't stare at me when I say that. I didn't write those steps. Introspection. Every one of our 12 steps says, look within, look within, look within. That's where the problem is. That's where the healing is. That's where you go. Another message in the story that we can use is that these men not only had a burning desire to defend their homes and families, but they had just as strong a belief that it would happen, that they would defeat the enemy and they would protect what was theirs. Now think about that, a desire and a belief. As I mentioned, our traditions tell us the only requirement for membership to a 12-step program is a desire to stop use. Now research goes a little further. It has been determined that two of the best predictors, not guarantees, but predictors, and I'm going to come back to that, of quality recovery are a strong desire to be clean and a firm belief that it will happen. This, along with all the other bells and whistles that are needed for recovery, puts you in a position where the true essence of your journey to recovery can get started. Now, I want to make a point here. I wish I had the guarantee to recovery. Throughout my entire career, I've looked for that magic bullet. What's that magic wand that we can wave on that'll get you to recovery? I want that for you because I want you to have that. I'd also like it for me because if I could come up with that, you couldn't afford me. I'd be making a whole bunch of money with other people. There are no guarantees, predictors, but I guarantee you there is a guarantee and I'm looking at it. Each and every one of you, if you want it, you can be that one. We got all these numbers, we got all these statistics. 1 out of 10 people in a treatment center is going to complete it. If I'm off, I'm not off by far. Maybe 1 out of 10 of them might get a 1-year medallion, and maybe 1 out of 10 of them might have long-term quality recovery. Those are numbers. Those are cold, faceless, soulless numbers. They don't have your heart. They don't have your desire. They don't know who you are. If you want it, you can get it. You can be the guarantee. Don't fall into the trap. People say that relapse is a part of recovery. I know, maybe not. I mean, there are some white chip wonders out there. But guys, here's one thing I want you to know, and you're all living examples of it right now, and it's a grace to be a part of it. If you want it, guys, you can be the guarantee. Don't ever lose sight of that. But there's more, a whole lot more. These terribly outnumbered soldiers knew from the start that they had to fight together as a team. Their strategy was to band together the 300 into an unconquerable one. So the tactic at all times was to force the overwhelming enemy to take on all of them whenever and however it attacked. They were only 300, but they had the strength of thousands when they worked together. And that is what AA has been doing since that afternoon in 1935 when Bill W. and Dr. Bob got together to talk about their common problems. They discovered that two alcoholics, banding together as a team, as you will, sharing their mutual experiences and working for the same goal, at least for that time, defeated the onslaught of their disease. That's what the fellowship of the program offers, the experience, strength, and hopes of millions to take on a foe that you cannot defeat on your own. And then there was the shield. You see, what they used as the greatest defense against all those men, monsters, and weapons was a simple shield. Here's how. What they would do is gather together in a tight group and hold up all their shields against the enemy. Now, the 300 shields held together closely over the heads and around the body of the soldiers became one invincible wall of protection. In one scene, the archers shoot so many arrows at them from a cliff that they literally block out the sun. It becomes a black night of horror because of the enemy's arrows. And what happened? All of the arrows bounced off of the shields and no one under their protective cover was harmed. And that's what I want you to learn from that. I'm convinced that almost all men and women come into rehab with an intense desire to be clean and sober. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in pain and desperation, I'll do anything to get clean. And I'm sure they mean that, and I do not doubt their sincerity. But if they fail, here's why I think that happens. Why their aspirations didn't hold up against the force of the enemy. They didn't have the right kind of shield. Or at least the one that I'm talking about. And what I mean by a shield is that along with the desire and a belief, you also need to have a why. And I'll try to illustrate my point. I entered treatment in 1992. At that time, my daughter was 7 years old. Now, I truly loved that child, and there was so much to love. She's happy, funny, ambitious, very sharp, smart, loaded with a ton of energy, and I treasured every moment we had together. I thought because I was spending as much time with her as I could and writing those child support checks, that I was being a great father, a role model. But I was also a drunk. And by her 7th year, a pretty hopeless one. I also have a big sister. My sister is probably one of the most important and influential people in my life. She is a treasure, and I simply adore her. And even though she said she loved me, she wasn't very impressed, and she told me that too. Now, this was before email and texting, so when you wanted to get in touch with someone, you picked up the phone and wrote a letter. And my word, did I ever get those phone calls and letters. She would fuss at me, tell me how much I was drinking, how bad it was, and how much damage I was doing to myself and others, and how I was blowing my life, and how disappointed everyone was at me, and how scared I was making them, and on and on and on, and I wasn't having none of it. I shut it down instantly. Sometimes I would say something ugly, slam down the phone, or not even open the letters, and this is how I treated someone that I loved dearly. Total denial, and denial in a way that made me mean and uncaring. One night, and I'm sure I was drunk, I noticed an unopened letter on the kitchen counter, and I decided I'd read it. I got about halfway down the first page, and I read where my sister wrote, "And your daughter deserves a better father." It was like Mike Tyson had delivered a right hook to my gut. I gasped at the force of that blow, and it knocked all the wind out of me, and the truth of her words buckled me. It took me back in time to my youth and to my hometown. I grew up in a very small town in South Carolina. It was a textile town. It could be a very rough existence. We played hard, ran hard, fought hard, loved hard. Any sign of any type of weakness invited pain and ridicule from the others. You could get branded as a sissy forever, and that was fatal. You didn't do that. You never recovered from that, so you didn't show it. Some of my friends almost never saw their parents working together in the same room. The father may be working one shift in the mills, and when he got home, the mother left to go work another shift. In silent desperation, many sought to escape the severity of that lifestyle through alcohol. As a result, there was alcoholism, a lot of it. It tried to hide itself, but we all knew it was there. You never talked about it, but you would see sometimes how their parents' alcohol use affected my friends. I would see how it affected my friends. Sometimes at best it would be a neglect, a lonely and heartbreaking distance between the parent and the child. Other times the harm was more unspeakable. As a young adult, I went to a funeral for a man whose 2 children did not even show up for. They weren't at their own father's funeral, and I knew why. And the whole scene felt grungy and wrong. And my sister just told me that my daughter had one of those fathers. Dear God. Now, I'd love to tell you that that was the night of my personal burning bush, when I saw the light, surrendered all right there on the spot, that I started making calls to rehabs, looked up a local AA meeting, and joined a church. I'd also like to tell you that I'm 6'4", young, handsome, brilliant, and filthy rich, but that wouldn't be true either. The truth is that my drinking went on for about another year, but it was never the same. Now I was haunted by it. I still spent time with my daughter, but my shame took everything good and fun away from it. There was no quality to it. Eventually I did, through the grace of God and the love of family and friends, go to a treatment, and the healing did begin. And do you want to know why I entered rehab? Why I tried this recovery thing? And I'm glad you asked. I was doing it for my daughter. Now, finally, I was going to be the father my child deserved, and wasn't that just about the damn most noble thing I could do? Wasn't I now special? Look at me, the father of the year. I was so proud and absolutely enthralled with myself, and who wouldn't be? I had no problem letting anybody know what I was doing and why. Hey, you get to be that kind of daddy, the whole world needs to know about you. Damn, I'm good. One night after a meeting, several of us were sitting around swapping rehab stories, and somebody asked me, why'd you go to treatment? You shouldn't have done that. Not me. That was a softball right in my wheelhouse, and I was going to knock it out of the park. Let me tell you about my daughter. And off I went. When I finished telling all of them about how great a father I was and how hard and selflessly I was working to be that guy and how they were going to make movies about me and put up statues, and hell, I was going to even have my own story in the back of the big book, all them stories back there. I was going to do all that. When I finally finished, he looked at me, and he asked softly, what if something happens to your daughter? What would you do then? Would you stay sober? All I could do was stare back at him. I'd gone completely blank. I was puzzled at why I had no answer, and then I was horrified at the answer that came to my mind, and it was another gut punch. And you want to know what that answer is? Now I can drink. Yeah. It was so strong and it came from so deep in my soul that I almost said it out loud. I didn't thank God, but it was so real, and it felt like it felt like it was such a part of me. It froze me to the spot I was standing in. Would I really start drinking again? I thought about that for a long time, and I soon went from panic to despair, for I realized that right then and there, what I thought was world-class quality recovery, packed from bottom to top with pure, noble, and God-blessed motives, was as worthless as a sandcastle in the path of the inevitable and destroying waves and tides of life, and I had no defense, not one. My ignorance, pride, and bullshit had all been exposed. I felt real naked and I felt real stupid. In World War II, during the Holocaust, when men and women were dying by the hundreds every day in various concentration camps, an Austrian doctor who was himself a captive began to study his fellow prisoners. And what he discovered was that he could predict with alarming accuracy who would die each night in the camp. He observed that sometimes very ill and injured prisoners survived, while seemingly fairly healthy ones died in their sleep. And do you know why? He learned that those who had given up hope died quicker than anyone. So he tried an experiment on them. He would ask each prisoner what it is that they wanted to do when they were liberated. Not if, but when. And you notice how that question opens up a whole other mindset. Those who could create a dream for the future, those who could envision a life after the war, those who held on to hope and keep their goals and dreams alive had a better chance of survival. Their hopes, when held up against the cruelest enemies you can think of, in the harshest and most heinous conditions you could ever imagine, kept them going. It kept them alive. Those who died emotionally soon died physically. He wrote, it was a question of getting them to realize that life was still expecting something from them, something in the future that was expected of them. He offered them something that they and millions of alcoholics and addicts had lost sight of, a future. Hope and the expectation of a meaningful and purposeful life became their shield. A shield made up of hopes, dreams, visions, and goals. A shield made up with the empowering knowledge of the responsibility to something greater than yourself. A shield fashioned and emboldened with principles, standards, morals, and values. That is the type of shield that you better have in the defense of your soul. Your disease does not want you to live. It exists for one reason, and that is so you die. Now, I don't mean to be insensitive or blunt, but you might need to know that. It may have been quiet while you were inpatient or in the early days after discharge, but do not fool me. It is alive, very much alive, and one day it's going to come screaming back at you like a bat out of hell. It doesn't fear death because it knows it can't, while it can't die, you can. And that just feeds its resolve. Its airs of fear and hopelessness will block out the sunlight of your spirit. If all of this sounds dire, but it's because it is. But let me remind you, our second step is called the hope step. And it is there, and I want you to never forget, the hope shows us and tells us there's always a way out. There's a promise there's always a way out. In fact, the promises describe and offer the life-changing rewards for never losing hope. But first, you better have that shield. You better have a reason not just to live, but to live in a principled and honorable way. You must forge for yourself a powerful and invincible shield of hope that one day your children will know their mother or father as the loving, caring, and nurturing parent that you are. You better fashion for yourself a shield of dreams as a free person, free of the slavery of addiction that you can hold up against the master drug that wants to keep you enslaved, wants to keep you in chains. You must set goals for yourself. Your education. Now, some of these goals, your education, your home, your family, your career, they're all important, very noble goals. But it's good to do that. But your shield must reach deeper, much deeper, into the depths of your very soul. Recovery is an inside job. That's where the infection is, and that's where the healing must take place, and that's also where your disease is going to attack you. So the why must live deep inside of you in those entrenched levels of your soul that no one but you can get to. Maybe this ain't you, but as for me, I got tired of lying and knowing that everybody else knew that I was a liar. I got real tired of not being trusted, and why would anybody do that? You'd have to be a fool to trust me. I had no respect for myself, and I proved that daily with the disgraceful ways I shattered all values and standards, often with zero remorse. I was past feeling shame, for I had nothing respectable left in me that could be shamed. I felt that there was not 1 ounce of me that was redeemable or worth saving. My life had become a daily and total sellout of honor, pride, decency, and integrity. And I wanted them back. I wanted all of that back. I wanted to recover my lost self. I wanted to be the man my parents tried to raise me to be. And when I realized how far removed I was from that ideal, I wanted to puke. Now, I've been blessed with the miracle of true recovery, quality recovery, for over 32 years now. In those years, I've gone to many functions, weddings, parties, holiday events, and no telling how many football games, golf events, and tournaments. Now, since I don't have a neon flashing sign over my head that says that I'm a recovering alcoholic, many well-meaning people have offered me drinks over the years in those times. They will say to me, I'm going to get a beer. I want one. I'm going to get a drink. You want one? Can I get you one? Now, the first thing that pops in my head is, where were all you damn people when I needed you? When I was drinking everything in sight. Somebody asked me one time, what was your favorite beer? I said, other people's. But hear me, I turned down every one of those well-meaning people and every one of those drinks. And you know why? I never refused one drink because I was protecting a white chip or that I was protecting a certain amount of days in recovery. I turned them all down because, like those Spartan warriors from so long ago, I was fighting to protect everything I believe in. Everything I hold dear. Everything that means anything to me. Anything that I know that's precious. My honor, my pride, my self-respect, my ability to be trusted and to trust myself, my integrity. And yes, after all these years and thousands of gallons of alcohol, now I actually do, and for all the right reasons, I feel comfortable in my own skin. And I fought hard to get that. I fought some hellish enemies to get there. I paid some dear prices for it. It's mine. I own it, and I ain't about to give it away. Now, since I started on this journey of recovery, my battle, and I hope you realize yours too, is never between me and the next drink. Did you hear what I said? The battle is never between you and the next drink. I'll explain. The conflict has always been and will always be between who my disease wants me to be and who I want to be. Because I know in a very real way that if I take that next drink, I will lose everything I have built so far, every blessing the God of my understanding has graced me with, and when I once again will spiral further away from the kind of man my father tried to raise me to be. And knowing all that clearly and firmly in my head and heart, in those times of sorrow over the years, confusion, disappointments, many temptations, in other words, whenever life threw its terms at me, and whatever those conditions were in those terms, I was able to defend myself. I defended my pride, my honor, my code, my integrity, all the character attributes that define me as a principled person, and I used my shield to do that. That's my defense. That's my armor I use in the war for my soul. Now, your reputation is out of your hands. We all know that people can and will talk about you however they want to. But one thing that every man or woman alive has inside of them that is bulletproof, that is golden and untouchable, is your character. And that's what you protect with all your might. You absolutely must have a vision of yourself as a man or a woman of moral principles. If you wonder how important what I am saying is, if you're wondering about how important what I'm saying is, just think about the 12th step. There we are tasked to do what? Practice these principles in all our affairs, with all times, in all people, in all situations. You don't get to pick and choose when you're going to be a person of character. And if you do, you're self-sabotaging your recovery. You're inviting defeat. You're working for the enemy. On page 85 of the big book, Bill Wilson emphatically lays out the battlefield plan, if you will. What we really have is a daily reprieve from our use or our disease, contingent on the maintenance of one's spiritual condition. You notice he did not say abstinence. He said, being the person you're supposed to be. That's how we defeat it. Now, you have to have a mission and a why you want to be sober. And this brings me back to, I want to tell a short story. When I got out of treatment down in South Florida, I did exactly what they told me not to do. I took on a job, it was a tough job. What I did was I was driving a forklift in this big warehouse they had. It was a mail order warehouse. It was a very nice one. They had very nice office equipment, desks, tables, chairs, lamps, and all that stuff. And all day long they're shipping this stuff out. And my job was to come in late afternoon and in the evening and forklift load those bays back up with the stuff they were going to send out the next day. Yeah, we all know hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. HALT. Well, I was all of them. I nailed all four of them. I was hungry, I was angry, I was lonely, and I was tired. I was down there by myself. And when I remember one night, and this is a true story, and this is a God moment for me. We've all heard the expression, you want to drink so bad you can taste it? I could taste it. That's how bad I wanted it. I'm down there by myself. It'd been dirt easy. Get in the car, go somewhere the clubs are open. The grocery stores sell liquor down there. And it would have been that easy. And that night in that parking lot, I had one of the battles of my life. And that battle was between what that drink wanted me to be and who I wanted to be. Because I knew that if I took that next drink, it wouldn't stop. That I would return in hours to that person who I had considered was absolutely unacceptable, intolerable. I could not be that person. I'd lose everything. I'd go back to lying. I'd go back to self-serving. I would go back to breaking hearts. I would look somebody in the eye that I loved and told them I loved them and then lie to them. I knew I was going all back to me. And I wrestled mightily with that night. And somehow or another, what I wanted, I did want that drink. I wanted desperately that drink, but I wanted something else more. And I've never forgot that lesson. That's what I held on to. And I did. Now, down there in South Florida, you can go to a meeting like 24 hours a day. I did go straight from that parking lot to a meeting. And I've never forgotten that. That was the night I learned where the battle is and how you win that battle. And that's why I say my recovery and quite possibly my life. You may want that drink someday, but when you hold up your shield of why against it, yes, you want that drink, but I want something else more. I want my soul back. I want to be proud again. You become unbeatable. Now you have a very strong defense against the next drink and drug. Make your desire for a principled character of integrity, faith, acceptance, courage, pride, and honor as the engine of your recovery. It drives your recovery. It propels you. It gives you motivation. It inspires you. It gives you positive energy. Make that why a force that you live with. Make that your shield, and then you hold it tight. But again, but like they say in those cheesy infomercials, wait, there's more. There's more. You'll be disappointed and maybe even frustrated to discover that your disease isn't your only obstacle in your journey to recovery and freedom. You are. There's a famous line from an old comic strip where one character reports to another, "We have met the enemy and he is us." You just might find yourself as your own worst enemy. Your doubts, pride, self-centeredness will pull you away from recovery and back into active addiction, or at least addictive thinking. Old behaviors, old self-defeated and old self-serving ways of thinking are going to flare up. They're going to try to destroy you. You better have that shield. You will be tempted to deny your need for help, lie about your pain, convince yourself that you don't need the sponsor and the meetings and the protective power they provide. You get tired. You get discouraged. Cravings never seem to end. You need to watch out for that. What that might mean is that you have left the protective power of your shield and the shields of others. You better find your shield and your fellow soldiers. You better grab your shield and you better get back in that group. People who know true joy also know that their lives have meaning. Those people are givers and not takers. So much research and just insightful observation shows that having a true meaning, a purpose in life, enhances self-esteem, increases overall self-satisfaction and self-respect, improves mental and physical health, and it greatly reduces depression. What really separates humans from animals is not the pursuit of happiness. That happens all over the natural world. It is the pursuit of meaning that defines us. So find your meaning in life. Joy comes as a result of a purposeful life. Construct a life of meaning and purpose. Make that in your shield. Get a reward for your pain. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can start by making your recovery attractive to others. You can use your miracle of recovery and hold it up so someone else can get their miracle. Know this, you might be the only big book anybody ever reads. You go to your meetings, 100 people there, one of them might read the big book. All of them are reading you. You can't hide and you're not supposed to. Create a vision of yourself as a person of honorable character. Reach as deep as possible to reveal your true best self. And you ask yourself, who do I want to be? Not what, not butcher, baker, candlestick maker, but as a person, who do I want to be? And then you beat back all the forces and tricks of your disease that would deny your victory, and you do that by using your shield. Nobody that knows anything about our disease and our struggles would deny it when it is said that our disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. But I have maintained that one of the reasons it is so cunning, baffling, powerful is that we don't use our own. Somehow, and for whatever reason, some people lose sight of why they even dared recovery in the first place. They stray from the mission. They get distracted. They get knocked off course. Their disease is winning at this point. This can lead to tragic and irreversible outcomes. But this heartbreak doesn't have to happen. You want to be more powerful than those forces that seek to destroy you? Forge a shield that has your name on it. One that is molded from your hopes and your dreams and your visions. One you can carry to defend you in the darkest of the nights and the meanest of the days. And then one day, when the sun breaks out again, and it will, and your heart is at rest, and it will, and the serenity that you prayed for unceasingly starts to glow, and it will, you will find that you can hold your shield over the heads of others in protection until they fashion one of their own. And that, my brothers and sisters in recovery, will be your greatest victory of all. And I'll even take you one step further. You'll never do anything else that'll piss off your disease more. You got to have a shield. Thank you. Any questions? let me tell you why I use that quote and why I think it's important in our world. First of all, if you want to go psychological here, psychology, that hurt people, that means when you're hurting, you'll hurt somebody else. That's a power grab. The hurt person feels they've lost power, they lost control, so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to grab yours. It gives them a sense of power. It gives them a sense of control. And that's a cruel way to do it. It's a mean way to do it. The reason I use it in some of the things I say and why it's so important to us is that if somebody hurts us, we immediately plunge into making it personal. Well, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why am I bad? Anybody ever read the 4 agreements? What's one of them? Don't take things personal. We think, so here comes all that self-doubt and our self-esteem goes bad and we feel terrible about ourselves because somebody else hurt me. It's like if I have a bad day and I go home and kick the dog. Well, the dog didn't do anything, but he got kicked. Okay, some people are having a bad lives and we get kicked. So the reason I want it is so important, I think that we should know that, is that I'm not excusing anybody's behavior. I think that's a very selfish and cruel thing to do, is to hurt somebody else because you're hurting. But we got to learn, guys, it may have happened to me, but it ain't got nothing to do with me. And that's important. We got to shift that incredibly negative force that we've attached to ourselves and just understand it for what it is. I just got in the way of a pretty bad guy right now. And that's all that happened. That's important. And I'll tell you, when you can get that locked in, guys, that'll take a lot of shame. That'll move a lot of shame.
It also turns my resentments into compassion.
Yes.
Well, that's exactly right, Reed, because, and again, that goes back to the change of character that our 12th step talks about. We don't want resentments. Resentment is a judgmental. It's judging. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I can tell you, I burned my judging card a long time ago. I don't got the right to judge anybody, and I don't want anybody judging me. So it does put me in a position where I can elevate myself. The only person you ever want to get even with is someone who's done a kind thing for you. When you do that, you rise. Any other thing, you go south. And we don't do that in recovery. Not us. Well, if you ask me how we deal with triggers, you're going to be here till about 9.
Okay, I figured that.
It goes back. Let's go back to our program. What's one of the principles of our first step? Acceptance. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Let it go. The deep breathing, the yoga that you learn here, the stuff that John and Wolf do and Nicole do here so brilliantly and wonderfully. Getting to mindfulness, all those things. The other thing is, it's you got to be. The recovering alcoholic has to adopt the mindset that I'm going to have emotions. And some of those emotions can be very negative, and some of those negative emotions can be triggers. Now, who's in charge here? Me or this feeling I just had? You got to learn to be in control of your feelings. And a lot of times, it's just, you know how you control your feelings? Let it go.
Yeah.
To hell with it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I ain't got no dog in that fight. Let it go. Don't label things. Maybe it ain't bad. You know what makes almost everything bad? We say it's bad. What if you don't say it's bad? Then it ain't.
That's right.
Don't label it. So there's all kind of mind games we take on this. But Reed's 100% right. That thing. Now, you want to stay here till 10 o'clock? Let me get started on resentments. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for your patience and everything.